Hi everyone. So I have been working with clients for over a decade and I specialize in relationships. One of the more difficult relationship things that I deal with is the no contact situation. Whether you've been blocked or you've chosen to go no contact with someone else, both of those situations can be incredibly painful and difficult and hard to navigate. There can be guilt, there can be resentment, isolation, rejection, lots of emotional and spiritual pain. And I'm in the business of spiritual healing using tarot as one of my tools. So today, I want to talk about how tarot can be a very beneficial tool, no matter who you are in this situation, to help find closure and healing in a no contact situation. So, to begin with, going no contact is usually not something that people take very lightly. It's not a situation that they come to easily. When you've decided to permanently distance yourself from someone or limit your communication with someone, it can be painful. A lot of people experience guilt, they second guess themselves, and to coming to the terms of these are my boundaries and how do I protect my boundaries, and usually it comes out of pain. It's a consequence of a painful situation, and oftentimes it's a last resort. Now, if you've ever been blocked or ghosted or had someone stop talking to you, it's also incredibly painful. It can be confusing. You might want to gain closure or ask them questions, or maybe you feel like if I could just explain myself, if I could just apologize, then I could make the situation better. And yet you find that if you reach out to that person, it actually makes the situation worse because they've chosen to not talk to you. So what do? It's one of those things that have to be dealt with in a very delicate way because there's a lot of unresolved questions. And tarot can be a fantastic tool because it's a safe and healthy alternative to getting those answers, getting that closure, and basically alchemizing your pain. Now, before we get started, like one big caveat here, tarot is not a tool to convince the other person to get in contact with you. It's not a way to spy on somebody else. Even though you can pull cards about someone else, its purpose is ultimate healing and accepting of a situation. At the end of the day, everybody has free will, and tarot cannot change the free will of other people. So if someone has made the decision to not talk to you anymore, that's a decision that you have to respect because that's part of their free will. They've made that decision. And ultimately, we have to respect the choices and the decisions of other people. Even if we disagree, we still have to respect the decisions of other people. That being said, some people in the tarot community, not myself, but some people think that it is unethical or immoral, whatever, to pull cards on somebody else, right? To pull cards to see, what does an ex think of me? Or what does this other person think about a situation? I don't at all. I actually think that it can be very helpful because it's an exercise in empathy, an exercise in understanding, and many times transformative healing can take place when we get out of our own head and we put ourselves in the shoes of someone else and we see the situation from another's perspective. And tarot has a very powerful way of doing that. A very blunt way of doing that, and especially through artwork and imagery on the cards, it can be very illustrative to put that point home, to get us out of our own ego, so to speak. So I like to pull cards, if you're trying to navigate a relationship dynamic with somebody else and they're not talking to you anymore. I think it's perfectly natural and normal and perfectly okay to want to pull cards on that other person to gain empathy and understanding and insight on, maybe their feelings or their opinion or what they think of you. Now, that being said, you can love somebody and also block them. That happens quite a lot, especially for my adult children clients who've blocked their parents, for example, a lot of them still love their parents. A lot of them still deeply care about their parents, but they've also chosen to go no contact with those parents. So if you were to pull cards on what does this person think about me, especially in those situations, it'd be like, well, they still love you. But for whatever reason, to protect their sanity, their emotional health, their spiritual health, whatever it is, they have decided to distance themselves from you at this time. And you need to respect that. But you still have pain. So let's work with that pain. Let's process that pain and figure out what that pain is trying to tell us and how to transform it into something that we can move on from and get closure from, right? So that is how my opinion on this subject is. If you want me to pull cards on a third-party reader or a third-party person, I'll be happy to do that, because ultimately the purpose of the tarot reading is to provide insight and healing, not to perpetuate unhealthy behaviors, right? So that leads me into my second thing about how tarot can help find clarity and closure, is that when we come to a tarot session and we're dealing with the unresolved pain of no contact, maybe you've got questions that you want answers to, but you can't get them from that person. Maybe you've got guilt that you need to work through. Maybe you've got resentment, isolation, rejection, all these things, inner wounds that come up that need to be addressed. And what tarot can do is it can be a very safe and healthy way to work through those pains. And I say it's safe and healthy because it's much better to go to a tarot reader and work through that, get that spiritual wisdom, than it is to maybe open the door on someone that you went no contact with. Like, let's say you had an abusive ex, and yet you still have unresolved questions or feelings. There's still things like lingering that you haven't found resolution. It's normal and natural to think like, well, I'll just call this ex and ask them. But once you open that door, it can be dangerous, especially if that person was abusive. So what do? Going to a spiritual healer, going to a tarot reader can be very beneficial because they can give you those answers without you having to put yourself in danger. Same if you've been blocked or ghosted by somebody. They don't want to talk to you. And if you force conversation on someone who doesn't want to talk to you, you will make the situation worse. Instead of them being receptive and wanting to, talk to you about something, they will feel like you don't respect their boundaries, that you don't respect their personal space, and that all you're doing is proving to them that they cannot trust you. So it makes the situation worse. So if you've been blocked or ghosted and you're confused or you're hurt or you just need to process that pain, it's also safer and healthier to go to a tarot reader. Maybe you need to see the situation from a different point of view. Maybe you need to reevaluate your roles in relationships or the way that you see people or treat people. There's so many different layers to the no contact situation. And that's why, I personally enjoy it as a tarot reader because it's so involved, it's so in depth, and no two people and no two situations are the same. One common misconception is, especially people who've been blocked, is they think, well, if I could just get this person to talk to me again, then my pain would go away. Like if I could just contact them, then I could make the situation better. And that isn't true. That isn't true. People who have gone no contact, they typically have gone no contact for a reason. And no contact is a result of pain. It's not the cause of pain. Now, no contact can be painful, but usually it is a consequence of something bigger that needs to be addressed and healed, and not just forcing communication on someone who maybe is not receptive to that communication. So that is just one of the ways that tarot can be so transformative. But it is important that if you find yourself suffering from pain regarding a no contact situation, that you go to a tarot reader who specializes in relationships and spiritual healing, like myself. It's not an easy conversation, and you need to go to someone who has the experience and maturity to guide you through the session, because tarot is more than just like pulling cards and talking. But as a spiritual healer, my role is to take the person's perspective, take my client's perspective, and use the archetypes and the alchemy and the cards to guide them towards maybe experiencing new emotions or experiencing new breakthroughs, guide them towards transformation and healing and wisdom. So it's an active influence that I put into the reading, but it's something that I've gained with like years of experience. And it's not something that I take lightly. And I think it's very important that if you are looking for spiritual healing, that you go to someone who has a professional record, someone who can treat your pain with empathy and compassion and consideration. Because at the end of the day, both parties are suffering in a no contact situation. Whether it's justified or not, your pain still exists, and that pain still needs to be addressed, and dealt with. Pain doesn't just resolve on its own. We have to alchemize it ourselves. So if you were in a no contact situation, working with a skilled tarot reader is a wonderful way to find peace and closure from that kind of situation, but to do it in a safe and supportive way. And it's much healthier. It's much healthier than forcing communication on someone who doesn't want to be talked with at this time, or opening the door with someone and you don't know the consequences of opening that door. So I'm a huge proponent of pulling cards and going to a tarot reader if you are in a no contact situation. It's healthier, it's safer, it's just a safe place, and you can talk to someone, a third unbiased party, who's going to give you honest responses. As a tarot reader, it's not my job to fuel someone's fantasy or to stroke their ego or to tell them what they want to hear. It is my job to interpret the cards and frame questions and have discussions in a way to guide that client, influence that client towards healing, transformation, acceptance, that kind of thing. So, it's not like talking to a friend or a coworker. I'm here to be honest and transparent, and maybe even challenging at times, but the intention is always to heal, to help assist you in your own personal healing. The pain is real in no contact situations. It's real, it's valid, and it's hard to deal with. And sometimes getting a tarot session is exactly what you need to get those answers, to get that closure that you need to get, that kind of foundation to move forward. So at the end of the day, being in a no contact situation doesn't mean you have to be in emotional limbo for eternity, emotional purgatory. Through tarot, especially a skilled tarot reader, you can really transform that pain into wisdom, confusion into clarity, and loss into personal growth. It's a wonderful tool. I've used it on clients